The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of golden sand under the glare of twin suns. Samuel Carter trudged across the barren landscape, his boots sinking slightly with each step. His ship, the Wanderer, sat a few hundred meters away, its hull scorched and battered from the meteor storm that had forced him to make an emergency landing on this desolate planet. The air was dry and hot, and sweat trickled down his temples as he scanned the ground for anything useful. Spare parts, scrap metal, anything that could help him repair the damaged engine. Samuel wasn't used to planets like this. Most of his work involved running cargo between busy spaceports, not wandering through wastelands. But lately, jobs had been scarce, and he'd taken whatever came his way. This trip had seemed simple enough. Deliver supplies to a mining colony on the edge of the galaxy. Of course, things rarely went according to plan when you were a freelance pilot trying to stay afloat. As he walked, something caught his eye, a glint of silver beneath the shifting sands. He crouched down and brushed away the dirt with his gloved hands. What emerged was strange, unlike anything he'd ever seen before. It looked like a pod, smooth and metallic, with faint etchings along its surface that shimmered even in the harsh sunlight. Curiosity got the better of him, and he pried it open with a crowbar he carried in his belt. Inside lay a small figure curled up tightly, wrapped in what appeared to be some kind of translucent membrane. At first glance, Samuel thought it might be a doll or a statue, but then he saw the subtle rise and fall of its chest. Whatever it was alive. Carefully, he peeled back the membrane, revealing a tiny alien child. Her skin was a soft, luminous blue, and her large almond-shaped eyes were closed. She didn't look older than 5 or 6 by human standards. For a moment, Samuel froze. Taking care of himself was hard enough. How could he possibly handle an alien child? Besides, getting involved with extraterrestrial life forms usually meant trouble. Governments wanted them studied, corporations wanted them exploited, and everyone else just wanted to sell their stories to the highest bidder. None of those options ended well. But as he stared at the fragile creature in front of him, memories flooded back. Memories he'd tried so hard to bury. Years ago, he'd failed to save someone who mattered deeply to him. He'd told himself there was nothing he could have done, but deep down, he knew he'd let fear dictate his actions. Now, staring at this child, he felt that same weight pressing down on him. Could he really walk away? With a heavy sigh, Samuel scooped her up gently and carried her back to the Wanderer. Once inside, he laid her on a makeshift cot and retrieved a medkit from one of the storage compartments. As he examined her, he noticed something peculiar. When he touched her arm, a warm sensation spread through his fingers, and the cuts on his hand from prying open the pod began to heal almost instantly. Startled, he pulled his hand back, but the child remained still, breathing steadily. Over the next few hours, Samuel kept watch over her, unsure of what to do next. He tried feeding her water and bits of dried food, though he doubted they'd be suitable for her biology. To his surprise, she stirred briefly, opening her eyes just enough to reveal irises that shimmered like liquid gold. She made a soft sound, somewhere between a hum and a whisper, before drifting off again. While she slept, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every time he turned around, the ship seemed eerily quiet, yet somehow alive. Lights flickered intermittently, and once, he swore he heard footsteps echoing down the corridor outside his quarters. Convinced it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, he dismissed it and focused on keeping the child comfortable. It wasn't until later that night, while reviewing the ship's logs, that he discovered something unsettling. A message had appeared on his communication console, written in characters he didn't recognize. Though the language was foreign, the tone was clear. "Return what is stolen." Samuel frowned, leaning closer to the screen. Stolen? He hadn't taken anything, not intentionally anyway, unless whoever sent the message was referring to the child. But why would anyone think he'd stolen her? And more importantly, who was tracking him? Before he could dwell on it further, another alert flashed on the console, a proximity warning. Glancing out the viewport, Samuel spotted a faint glow on the horizon, growing brighter by the second. Something was approaching fast, and judging by the size of the energy signature, it wasn't friendly. His heart raced as he powered up the Wanderer's engines, preparing to lift off. Whatever was coming, he needed to get out of there, and quickly. But as he secured the child in the passenger seat beside him, he couldn't help but wonder if he'd made the right choice. Saving her might have been the noble thing to do, but now it seemed like danger was following close behind. As the ship ascended into the sky, leaving the barren planet far below, Samuel glanced at the sleeping alien child. Her presence filled the cabin with an odd sense of calm, despite the chaos brewing outside. For better or worse, their fates were intertwined now. And somewhere out there, across the vast expanse of space, someone, or something, was determined to find them. Samuel spent the next few days trying to make sense of the strange child he had brought aboard his ship. He named her Lyra, a name that felt simple and fitting, though he doubted she understood it. At first she seemed content to sit quietly, in the corner of the cabin, watching him with those shimmering golden eyes. Her silence was unnerving, but Samuel found comfort in the fact that she didn't cry or scream like a human child might. Instead, she observed everything around her with an almost otherworldly calm. Over time, Samuel began teaching her basic words and gestures. He pointed to objects and repeated their names slowly, hoping she would pick up on the sounds. To his surprise, she started mimicking him after only a few attempts. When he said light, she reached out and touched the glow panel on the wall, causing it to brighten slightly. When he said food, she tilted her head and made a soft humming noise, as if acknowledging the concept. It was clear she was intelligent, far more intelligent than any human child her size, but there was still so much about her that remained a mystery. What fascinated Samuel most were her abilities. The healing touch she had used on his hand wasn't a one-time occurrence. One evening, while tinkering with the ship's engine, Samuel accidentally burned his arm on a hot pipe. Before he could grab the med kit, Lyra appeared beside him, placing her small hand on the wound. A warm sensation spread through his skin, and within seconds the burn was gone, leaving behind smooth, unmarked flesh. Samuel stared at her in awe, unsure whether to feel grateful or terrified. She smiled faintly, as if pleased with herself, before wandering off to explore the ship again. Despite these moments of wonder, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. Ever since leaving the desert planet, strange things had been happening aboard the Wanderer. Equipment that had worked perfectly for years suddenly malfunctioned without explanation. Lights flickered unpredictably, and once, the navigation system rerouted them to a completely different course without any input from Samuel. Each incident left him more uneasy than the last, but he tried to convince himself it was just stress or old wiring acting up. One night, as Samuel lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, he heard it, a faint whisper coming from somewhere deep within the ship. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but the sound grew louder, clearer. It wasn't in any language he recognized, yet it carried an undeniable urgency, as if pleading for something. Heart pounding, Samuel grabbed a flashlight and crept into the corridor following the voice. It led him to the cockpit where the communication console was glowing faintly despite being powered down. On the screen, a series of symbols blinked rapidly, accompanied by a low hum. Samuel leaned closer, squinting at the display. Some of the symbols looked familiar. They matched the ones from the message he'd received earlier. Return what is stolen. But now, there was more. Beneath the original warning, new lines of text scrolled across the screen, forming patterns that shifted and changed too quickly for him to follow. Samuel reached out to touch the console, but the moment his fingers grazed the surface, the screen went dark. He stood there for a long moment, heart racing, before finally turning back toward the cabin. Whatever was happening, it wasn't natural, and it wasn't random. Someone or something was tracking them. And judging by the tone of the messages, they weren't interested in negotiation. The next day, Samuel decided to review the ship's flight logs, hoping to find some clue about who might be following them. As he sifted through the data, he noticed something alarming. A large vessel had been trailing the Wanderer for several light years, maintaining a steady distance but never straying too far behind. Its trajectory matched theirs exactly, even when they altered course multiple times. Whoever it was, they were persistent and dangerously close. Samuel knew he couldn't outrun them forever. The Wanderer was fast, but it wasn't built for prolonged chases, especially against a ship that looked as advanced as the one pursuing them. He needed a plan, but first, he needed answers. Who were these people? Why did they want Lyra back so badly? And what would they do if they caught up to them? That evening, Samuel sat across from Lyra in the cabin, studying her face. She gazed back at him curiously, tilting her head as if sensing his worry. For a brief moment, he considered taking her to the nearest spaceport and handing her over to authorities. Surely someone would know how to handle this situation better than he could. But then he remembered the message. Return what is stolen. If he gave her up now, whoever was chasing them might not stop until they destroyed the Wanderer, and possibly him along with it. No, Samuel realized, there was no easy way out of this. He had made a choice when he saved Lyra, and now he had to see it through. Whether it was guilt, fear, or something else entirely driving him, he couldn't abandon her. Not yet. As the days passed, Samuel noticed subtle changes in Lyra's behavior. She became more interactive, often reaching out to touch objects around the ship. One day she pressed her hand against the viewport, and the glass fogged slightly, revealing intricate patterns that shimmered like frost. Another time she walked over to the food dispenser and tapped it gently, causing it to produce a small portion of nutrient paste that smelled faintly sweet. It was as if she was learning not just the language but the very nature of the world around her, and adapting to it. These moments gave Samuel hope, but they also reminded him of the danger they were in. Whoever was chasing them clearly valued Lyra immensely, and he doubted they would hesitate to use force to get her back. He needed help, but asking for assistance meant risking exposure and putting others in harm's way. Eventually, Samuel remembered Rachel Monroe, an old acquaintance, who lived on a remote research colony near the edge of the galaxy. Rachel specialized in interspecies communication and had helped resolve conflicts between humans and alien species before. If anyone could figure out who was tracking them and why, it was her. But reaching her wouldn't be easy. The colony was located within the dense rings of a gas giant, making it difficult to detect unless you knew exactly where to look. With no other options, Samuel plotted a course for the colony, hoping that Rachel would agree to help. Along the way, he kept a constant watch on the sensors, dreading the moment when the pursuing ship would catch up to them. Every jump through hyperspace felt like a gamble, every star system a potential trap. Yet somehow, they managed to stay ahead, inching closer to safety with each passing day. During the journey, Samuel found himself growing increasingly attached to Lyra. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was part of his life, however briefly. In many ways, she reminded him of the family he had lost, the laughter, the curiosity, the unconditional trust. Being around her forced him to confront emotions he had buried long ago, reopening wounds he thought had healed. But it also gave him a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to keep moving forward even when the odds were stacked against him. By the time they reached the gas giant's rings, Samuel's nerves were frayed, and exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. Still, he refused to give up. Whatever awaited them at Rachel's colony, he knew one thing for certain: they couldn't face it alone. The gas giant loomed ahead, its swirling clouds painted in shades of orange and gold. The Wanderer slipped into the dense rings surrounding the planet, navigating carefully through the debris field that made detection nearly impossible. Samuel kept his focus sharp, knowing that one wrong move could send them crashing into a chunk of ice or rock. Lyra sat quietly in the co-pilot's seat, her glowing blue skin reflecting faintly off the control panel. She seemed to sense the tension in the air, her golden eyes scanning the viewport as if searching for something. After what felt like hours, the colony came into view, a cluster of domed structures nestled on a moon orbiting the gas giant. was small and unassuming, designed to blend seamlessly with the icy terrain. Samuel guided the ship toward the landing pad, relief washing over him as he powered down the engines. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to breathe. Rachel. Monroe greeted him at the airlock, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Rachel was older than Samuel, with short gray hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She wore a simple jumpsuit marked with patches from various research missions, and her hands were calloused from years of hard work. When she saw Lyra, standing beside Samuel, her eyebrows shot up. "I didn't expect you to bring company," Rachel said, her voice calm but firm. "Who is she?" Samuel hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "Her name is Lyra. I found her on a planet after an emergency landing. She's not human." Rachel studied Lyra for a moment before nodding. "That much is obvious. What do you want from me, Samuel?" He explained everything. The pod, the mysterious messages, the malfunctioning equipment, and the ship that had been following them. As he spoke, Rachel listened intently, occasionally glancing at Lyra. When he finished, she crossed her arms and sighed. "You're in deep trouble," Rachel said bluntly. "If someone is willing to track you across galaxies, they aren't going to stop until they get what they want. Do you have any idea who she belongs to?" Samuel shook his head. "No, all I know is that whoever it is, they're powerful and dangerous." Rachel frowned, her gaze lingering on Lyra. "Let me run some tests. Maybe we can figure out where she comes from, or at least understand why she's so important." Over the next few hours, Rachel conducted a series of scans and experiments. She used advanced equipment to analyze Lyra's physiology, taking samples of her skin and studying her energy patterns. Lyra remained calm throughout the process, seemingly unbothered by the strange machines and probes. Samuel watched from the corner of the lab, feeling both grateful and guilty for involving Rachel in this mess. Finally, Rachel turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "She's extraordinary," she said. "Her biology is unlike anything I've ever seen. Her cells emit a low-level energy field that seems to interact with matter on a molecular level. That's probably how she healed your burn." Samuel nodded, remembering the warmth of her touch. "But what does it mean? Why would anyone go to such lengths to find her?" Rachel hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "From what I can tell, she's not just a child. She's special. Maybe even sacred to her people. If I had to guess, whoever is chasing you sees her as vital to their survival." The weight of Rachel's words hit Samuel like a punch to the gut. He had suspected as much, but hearing it aloud made it real. Lyra wasn't just a lost alien child. She represented something far greater, something worth killing for. While Rachel worked, Samuel kept a close eye on the colony's sensors, monitoring for any signs of the pursuing ship. So far there was no activity, but he knew better than to let his guard down. Whoever was after them wouldn't give up easily. Later that evening, Rachel called Samuel into the lab. She looked troubled, her usual confidence replaced by unease. "I intercepted another message," she said, pointing to a screen displaying a string of symbols. "It's addressed to you." Samuel stepped closer, his stomach tightening. The message read, "Surrender the child, or face annihilation." "They're getting bolder," Rachel muttered. "This isn't just about retrieving her anymore. They're threatening war." Samuel clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "What am I supposed to do? Hand her over and hope they don't destroy us anyway?" Rachel shook her head. "Not yet. Let's try to communicate directly. Maybe we can reason with them." Together, they worked on decoding the language, piecing together fragments of meaning from the messages they had received. It was slow, painstaking work, but eventually, they managed to craft a response. Using the colony's communication array, they sent a message back to the unknown pursuers. "We seek peaceful resolution. Please identify yourselves." Hours passed without a reply. Samuel paced the lab, his nerves stretched thin. Just when he started to think their attempt had failed, the console lit up with an incoming transmission. A holographic image flickered to life, revealing a towering figure clad in armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Her face was partially obscured by a helmet, but her piercing gaze left no doubt about her authority. "I am Kayla," the figure declared, her voice deep and commanding. "You will return my daughter immediately." Samuel exchanged a glance with Rachel before stepping forward. "Your daughter?" he asked cautiously. "Is that who she is?" Kayla's expression darkened. "Do not play games with me, human. You have taken what is mine. Return her or suffer the consequences." Rachel intervened, her tone measured but firm. "We mean no harm. We found her alone on a distant planet. We didn't know she belonged to anyone." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "She is not yours to claim. She carries the future of my people within her. Without her, we are doomed." Samuel felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about a mother wanting her child back. It was about survival. Whatever role Lyra played in her species' destiny, it was critical enough to warrant crossing galaxies and destroying anyone who stood in the way. "We want to help," Rachel said quickly, "but we need to understand. Why is she so important?" For a moment, Kayla hesitated. Her posture relaxed slightly and a flicker of emotion crossed her face. Pain, perhaps, or grief. "She is the last of her kind," Kayla admitted. "Our world was destroyed, and she alone carries the essence of our race. Without her, all is lost." The room fell silent as the weight of Kayla's words settled over them. Samuel glanced at Lyra, who stood nearby, watching the hologram with wide eyes. She seemed to recognize the voice, tilting her head slightly as if listening intently. Rachel broke the silence. "There must be another way. Surely we can find common ground." Kayla's response was cold and final. "There is no compromise. Bring her to me, or prepare for destruction." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Samuel and Rachel staring at the blank screen. The tension in the room was suffocating. "What now?" Samuel asked quietly. Rachel exhaled slowly, her mind racing. "We need to meet her face to face, negotiate directly. If we stay here, she'll tear this colony apart looking for Lyra. But if we go to her..." "It's suicide," Samuel finished. "Maybe," Rachel admitted, "but it's also our only chance." Samuel looked at Lyra, who gazed back at him with innocent trust. He knew what he had to do. Turning to Rachel, he nodded grimly. "All right, let's do it." As they prepared for the journey, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. But deep down he also knew that running wouldn't solve anything. If they wanted to protect Lyra and themselves, they had to face Kayla head-on. The Wanderer drifted silently through the void of space, its engines humming softly as it approached Kayla's warship. The massive vessel loomed ahead, a monolith of steel and energy that dwarfed Samuel's small freighter. Its surface bristled, with weapons turrets and glowing conduits, a stark reminder of the power they were about to face. Samuel sat in the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls tightly. Beside him, Lyra gazed out the viewport, her luminous blue skin casting a faint glow across the cabin. Rachel had insisted on staying behind at the colony, citing the need to monitor communications and provide backup if things went wrong. But, even with her support, Samuel couldn't shake the knot of dread twisting in his stomach. He had agreed to this meeting because it seemed like their only chance at survival, but now, staring at the colossal ship before them, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. A voice crackled over the comm system, cold and commanding. "You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves." Samuel swallowed hard and pressed the transmit button. "This is Samuel Carter. I'm here with Lyra, as requested. We seek peaceful negotiation." There was a long pause, during which Samuel's heart pounded in his chest. Finally, the voice responded. "Permission granted. Dock at Base 7. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction." Samuel guided the Wanderer toward the designated docking bay, his movements deliberate but tense. As the ship settled into place, he glanced at Lyra one last time. Her golden eyes met his, and for a moment, he thought he saw understanding in them, an awareness of what was about to happen. He forced a weak smile. "It'll be okay," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. The airlock hissed open, and two armored figures stepped aboard, their weapons trained on Samuel and Lyra. Without a word, they gestured for the pair to follow. Samuel complied, keeping Lyra close as they were led through the labyrinthine corridors of the warship. The walls were sleek and metallic, lined with pulsating veins of energy that gave the ship an almost organic feel. Soldiers in uniform stood, at attention, their faces hidden behind helmets, their presence radiating authority and menace. They were brought to a vast chamber that served as the throne room. At its center stood Kayla, her towering form clad in shimmering armor that caught the light from the overhead panels. Her helmet was removed now, revealing sharp features and piercing eyes that locked onto Samuel the moment he entered. Behind her, a squad of elite guards stood ready, their weapons gleaming ominously. Kayla's gaze shifted to Lyra, softening ever so slightly before hardening again as she turned back to Samuel. "You dare bring her here under false pretenses," Kayla said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Do you think I cannot see your deceit?" Samuel took a step forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I didn't come here to deceive you. I came to talk, to find a way to end this without violence." Kayla scoffed, her expression darkening. "Violence is inevitable when thieves refuse to return what they have stolen. She is my daughter, the last hope of my people. You have no right to keep her." Samuel hesitated, searching for the right words. "I didn't know she belonged to anyone when I found her. She was alone, abandoned on a barren planet. All I wanted was to protect her." "Protect her," Kayla repeated, her tone laced with disbelief. "You are human, a race known for greed and destruction. What could you possibly offer her that I cannot?" Before Samuel could respond, Lyra stepped forward, breaking free from his side. She walked toward Kayla, her movements slow and deliberate. For a moment, the entire room seemed to freeze, all eyes fixed on the small alien child. When she reached Kayla, she looked up, her golden eyes meeting the warrior queen's with an intensity that silenced even the most hardened soldiers. Lyra raised her hand, placing it gently against Kayla's armored leg. A surge of energy rippled through the room, and Kayla staggered back, her expression shifting from anger to shock. Images began to flash in the air around them, visions of Lyra's time with Samuel. They saw her healing his wounds, mimicking his words, exploring the wanderer with wide-eyed curiosity. They saw moments of laughter and quiet companionship, fleeting but genuine. Samuel watched, unsure of what was happening. It was as if Lyra was showing Kayla everything she had experienced since being found, every act of kindness, every attempt to understand her. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of energy emanating from Lyra. When the visions faded, Kayla stood motionless, her armor glinting in the dim light. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of emotion. In her eyes, something softer, more vulnerable than before. She knelt down slowly, bringing herself to Lyra's level. For a long moment, mother and daughter simply stared at each other, the weight of their bond hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Kayla spoke, her voice quieter but no less firm. "You have cared for her," she said, addressing Samuel. "I did not expect such compassion from someone like you." Samuel nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "She saved me as much as I saved her. I couldn't abandon her, not after everything." Kayla studied him for a moment longer, then rose to her full height. "Very well," she said. "You may live, for now. But she comes with me. There can be no compromise." Samuel felt a pang of loss, knowing that this moment had always been inevitable. Still, he couldn't help but argue one last time. "She trusts me. If you take her away, she'll lose that connection. Is that what you want?" Kayla's gaze softened briefly, and she placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "She is strong. She will adapt as she has always done. But her destiny lies with her people, not with you. Lyra turned to look at Samuel, her expression filled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. She reached out and touched his hand, and once again, warmth spread through him, easing the ache in his chest. Though no words were spoken, the message was clear. Thank you. With a heavy heart, Samuel stepped back, allowing Kayla to lead Lyra away. As they disappeared into the depths of the warship, he was left standing alone in the throne room, surrounded by soldiers who regarded him with wary respect. Moments later, Kayla returned, carrying a small device in her hand. She held it out to Samuel. "This is a shield generator," she explained. "It will protect your ship from future threats. Consider it a gesture of goodwill." Samuel accepted the device, his fingers brushing against hers. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, genuinely puzzled. Kayla's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Because you reminded me that not all humans are the same. Perhaps there is still hope for your kind." Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Samuel to make his way back to the Wanderer. As he piloted the ship away from the warship, he couldn't help but glance at the empty co-pilot's seat where Lyra had once sat. The pain of losing her was fresh, but so was the knowledge that he had done the right thing. For the first time in years, Samuel felt a sense of closure. He had saved an alien child, faced the wrath of her vengeful mother, and lived to tell the tale. And though their paths might never cross again, he knew that somewhere out there, across the endless expanse of space, Lyra was safe. And that was enough. The Wanderer drifted through the quiet emptiness of space, its engines humming softly as Samuel guided it along a course he had set hours earlier. The ship felt different now, quieter, lonelier. Every corner seemed to echo with memories of Lyra. Her soft hums, her curious gaze, the way she would mimic his movements. Samuel tried to focus on the controls, but his mind kept drifting back to the throne room aboard Kayla's warship, the moment when Lyra had walked away with her mother. He leaned back in the pilot's seat, staring at the stars streaking past the viewport. For so long he had carried the weight of guilt from his past, blaming himself for failing those he cared about. Saving Lyra had been his chance to make things right, to prove that he could protect someone who needed him. But now she was gone, and though he knew it was for the best, the ache in his chest refused to fade. Rachel's voice crackled over the comm system, pulling him from his thoughts. "Samuel, are you still out there? I've been trying to reach you." "Yeah, I'm here," he replied, pressing the transmit button. His voice sounded tired even to his own ears. "How did it go?" Rachel asked cautiously. Samuel hesitated before answering. "It's done. Lyra is with her mother now." There was a pause on the other end. "And you? Are you okay?" "I'll live," Samuel said simply. He didn't feel like talking about it, not yet. Instead, he changed the subject. "Kayla gave me something before we left, a shield generator. She said it would protect the Wanderer from future threats." "That's unexpected," Rachel admitted. "Do you think she meant it as a thank you?" Samuel shrugged, even though Rachel couldn't see him. "Maybe. Or maybe she just wanted to make sure I didn't cause any more trouble." Rachel chuckled softly. "Knowing you, trouble seems to find you whether you want it or not." Despite himself, Samuel smiled faintly. "You're probably right." They talked for a while longer, Rachel updating him on the status of the colony and offering words of encouragement. When the call ended, Samuel sat in silence, letting the quiet of the ship wash over him. He glanced at the shield generator resting on the console beside him. It was small and unassuming, its surface etched with intricate patterns that shimmered faintly under the light. He wondered what kind of technology lay within it, and why Kayla had chosen to give it to him. As the days passed, Samuel began to settle into a routine again. He plotted new courses, checked the ship's systems, and made repairs where needed. The Wanderer felt like home once more, though the absence of Lyra lingered like a shadow. Still, he found solace in the knowledge that he had done the right thing. Lyra was safe with her mother, surrounded by her people, carrying the future of her race within her. That thought brought him a strange sense of peace. One evening, as Samuel prepared to sleep, he noticed something unusual on the navigation screen. A faint signal was coming from a nearby sector, a weak transmission repeating the same sequence over and over. Curious, he adjusted the ship's trajectory to investigate. The source of the signal turned out to be an abandoned probe floating aimlessly in space. Its design was unfamiliar, clearly alien in origin, but it bore markings similar to those on the pod where he had found Lyra. Samuel retrieved the probe using the Wanderer's grappling arm and brought it aboard. Inside its memory banks, he discovered fragments of data, images, recordings, and snippets of text written in the same language Kayla had used during their confrontation. Though he couldn't understand most of it, one phrase stood out. Hope endures. The words resonated with him, stirring emotions he hadn't fully processed. Hope endured. It was a simple idea, yet powerful enough to sustain entire civilizations. Kayla's people had faced destruction, losing everything they held dear. Yet they clung to the belief that their future could be rebuilt through Lyra. And Samuel, too, had found hope in saving her, even if their time together had been brief. Over the next few weeks, Samuel continued his work as a freighter pilot, taking on jobs that led him across the galaxy. Each stop brought new faces, new challenges, and reminders of how vast and unpredictable the universe truly was. But no matter where he went, he carried the lessons he had learned from Lyra and Kayla. Compassion, resilience, and the importance of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. These were values he vowed never to forget. Months later, as the Wanderer passed through a particularly remote region of space, Samuel spotted something unusual on the sensors. A massive vessel was approaching, its silhouette unmistakable. It was Kayla's warship. His heart raced as he slowed the Wanderer, unsure of what to expect. Had she come to finish what she started? To punish him for interfering? But instead of hostility, a message appeared on the comm screen. This time, the symbols were accompanied by a single word in basic galactic language. Thank you. Samuel stared at the screen, his breath catching in his throat. Before he could respond, the warship turned and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only silence. For a long time, Samuel sat in the cockpit, staring at the empty space where the warship had been. Kayla's message wasn't much, but it meant everything. In her own way, she had acknowledged what he had done, not just for Lyra, but for her people. It was closure, plain and simple. As the Wanderer resumed its journey, Samuel allowed himself to reflect on all that had happened. He had saved an alien child, faced the wrath of her vengeful mother, and lived to tell the tale. Along the way, he had rediscovered parts of himself he thought were lost forever. His courage, his compassion, his ability to care for others. And though the scars of his past remained, they no longer defined him. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, each one a reminder of the infinite possibilities waiting beyond the horizon. Somewhere out there, Lyra was growing, learning, becoming the leader her people needed her to be. And somewhere out here, Samuel was doing the same, navigating the uncertainties of life one step at a time. The Wanderer slipped into hyperspace, its engines roaring to life as it carried Samuel toward whatever adventures lay ahead. Whatever came next, he knew he would face it with the same determination that had brought him this far. After all, hope endured, and so did he.